So we're going to go ahead and get started right on time because unlike Sean Stapleton, I do not normally go under, but I do cut myself off. The one thing I will point out is this PowerPoint slide deck, it currently is uploaded to my SlideShare account. I did make revisions early this morning, so I'll upload a fresh version later on today. So the whole premise of this particular presentation has been really to give an overview of how I've seen digital marketing develop for car dealers over the past really 15 years since I marked 1995 as really the start of it when AutoCon first came out and started selling internet leads to dealers in 1995, and that sort of started the ball rolling. Now the purpose behind this is it's not a history lesson. My whole premise is that if you understand the evolution of how these digital marketing technologies, practices, strategies, behaviors at both the consumer level and at the dealer level, how they've evolved over time, I find that it helps me prioritize where to focus right now and for going forward in the future. Because if you've seen how consumers have adopted different types of technologies that affect the way they buy cars, and you see how they've reacted to what we've done as dealers and what has worked and what hasn't worked, I believe it makes you better qualified to predict what's important as we go forward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the timelines. I'm going to go through them real quickly here. I'm going to talk a lot about the present, and then I'm going to finish up with my predictions for the future. And when I say predictions, it's really not fair. I'm giving myself too much credit. What I'm talking about is technologies that exist today that haven't yet gotten traction, that are out there, that are being used. So a lot of what Sean Stapleton referred to in the general session, where he talked about data integration, it's actually not the integration strategy that's driving it, it's the consumer behavior around how they're using their information, how they're publicizing their information, and what they're responding to. And really the technologists, the companies like the VIN Solutions or the Reynolds or the ADPs or the Dealer Tracks of the world or whoever it is, in order for them to build software technology that they can sell to dealers, it really has to take advantage of what the consumer's behaviors are doing. Now, I think most of us, it's fair to say, consumers overwhelmingly have adopted the use of technology at this point. Between the mobile devices, the way they use some of the social media networks, you almost can't ignore it. This is what consumers are doing. How many of you have ever felt you were directly impacted by a review by a customer? Has anybody seen that? Because I have. And I have to tell you, my first lesson, there was a Ford store up in Kirkland, Washington. I was up there in 2009. And we didn't know what we were doing, but we hooked up with Dealer Rater. I had met some people that owned Dealer Rater, Chip Gruder. I liked them. I said to the dealer, let's spend 85 bucks a month and get signed up with Dealer Rater. So then of course you have to get the reviews, right? So we just started sending out emails and calling customers and saying, give us reviews. I think within the first 2 weeks, we had about 25 reviews on the site. I was going up there on 2-day visits, a month apart. I'll never forget, from one visit to the next visit, Jim Wallen's wife, Amy Wallen, who was the controller for the dealership, the first time I went there, I was there on Ford's dime. Ford Motor Company was paying the bill, but she was suspicious. She'd come out and say, is this going to show up on my part statement? How am I getting screwed here? I know somebody is going to figure a way to charge you to my dealership. And I kept assuring her that no, it's a special project, and she wouldn't. So she was always very standoffish to me. And I think it was my third visit, I walked in and she comes over to me on the showroom floor, kind of trying over, and she gives me a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and she goes, we love you. And I was completely shocked. I couldn't understand why she was. Well, what had happened was, between the prior trip and this trip, they'd gotten in between 6 to 8 deals a week from people driving all over the state of Washington to do business with that dealership because of the reviews that they saw on this Dealer Rater site. Now keep in mind, we weren't relying on Dealer Rater. We were actually syndicating. We were using, they have an app where you can push the reviews out to blog posts and Facebook and all these other places, and we had hooked all that stuff up. But that was my first real inkling to the financial impact of the proper use of social media. I mean, here I was, I had the controller who never trusted me, and I come back and she's hugging me. And I knew that it was a question of dollars and cents. It was a question of money. So a lot of times when we talk about technology and the evolution that changes in the business, there are many general managers, salespeople, in the dealership that say, I can't be bothered with all that stuff. I just need more ups. I'm just, if I could just get more traffic in the showroom floor, if you could figure out how to do that, then I'm fine. But don't bother me with all that goofy social crap. The bottom line is, and if you're here at this conference, you probably already realize this, the bottom line is it does affect the bottom line. It is affecting us. And one of the things that's hard to realize is when it works for us, we feel it. When it works against us, we're oblivious to it. You don't know how many people are deciding not to come to your dealership because of negative reviews. You don't know how many people are not coming to your dealership because they saw good things being said about one of your competitors and silence about your store. So the tough part about all this is if you're not handling it properly, chances are you're going to be blissfully ignorant of how much it's hurting you. Now, when it works, you can tell. But when it doesn't work, you can't. And we all know that, I wonder what happened to the projector. There we go. So the hard part, again, is that for the stores that are being adversely impacted by their lack of properly embracing the digital marketing technologies, many times they're simply not aware because they don't feel it. And Drew, I know you've been in this as long as I have. I mean, don't you see some of that in terms of you don't feel the negative, you do feel the positive, and so it's easy to just ignore it and not deal with it.
100% correct.
Yeah. I apologize for the projector issues. And by the way, one of my coaching, I've always said to coaching people I'm presenting is never apologize. Just keep moving on. So I just broke my own rule. Is it on? Oh, you can see that, great. Yeah, I guess I let it shut off too long. And so anyway, what I did in preparation for this is I took some timelines and I started off with a technology development timeline that I found somewhere. And then I added things that were relevant to that timeline to the auto industry. So in this particular timeline, we're looking back from the birth of the internet all the way up to 2007. And obviously you see in the automotive world from 1995 to 2007 there was a lot of developments. A couple things that I find fascinating for me is that how many people remember Cars Direct, when Cars Direct first came out? Now do you remember how, Greg, remember how disruptive it was? Oh, yeah. Everybody was shaken up. It was automotive news, cover stories. Cars Direct were making statements like, you're not going to need a dealer anymore. You're going to come to Cars Direct to buy a car. And when I look back on it and having been there in the middle of it, it was kind of ridiculous for anybody to take it seriously because in the United States, if you're a retail consumer and you want to buy a car, where do you have to get that car? From a dealer. That's the way our system is configured. We have a franchise system which protects the ownership, that franchise within a geographic area. If you have a Ford franchise or you have a Chevy franchise, Cars Direct can't come into your market and sell Fords and deliver them in your market without obtaining a franchise. So I still, when I look back on it, Greg, because you were there with me, and remember how the dealers were panicked about that? Now here's where it comes important though. That's what we call disruptive technology. So you get the concept, somebody comes along and it disrupts the existing business model. How disruptive was it? Well, for example, the creation of Ford Direct. Anybody here for the Ford store? Any Ford dealers? So Ford Direct was launched as a direct response to Cars Direct. Because Ford said, well, we want our dealers to have a dealer-controlled organization that's going to be able to retail cars on the internet, because we don't think companies like Cars Direct should be able to sell Fords on the internet. Now, obviously, Ford Direct, and Becky Caldwell, Ford Direct is in the room. Thank you, Becky. Ford Direct obviously has evolved into a lot more from that original mission, but that was the onus, that was the impetus to create Ford Direct. As it led to several other things. So you have the birth of Ford Direct, and then along the way, as this is going on, these blogging started getting popular. Google started getting popular. And this started disrupting a lot of different systems. When I say disrupt, let's think about the world. It's working now. Yeah, it keeps shutting down.
Well, maybe it's because you can do the job yourself.
I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Ben. So anyway, what happens is that with disruptive technologies like this emerging, is typically the disruptive piece does not become the dominant company. It's what it triggers, the series of events that the disruptive technology triggers. Now, if you think about it, anybody here use search engines before Google? I did. Ever hear of Alta Vista, Lycos, Mama, M-A-M-M-A, Excite? So there was a bunch of them. So did Google invent search engines? No, Google didn't invent search engines. Search was something that had been around for actually quite a while before Google emerged. What happened is Google's use of that disruptive technology and their innovation around it in terms of the algorithms that they use to determine what came up as a search result led to its wide adoption by consumers, and it became the dominant player, and it took that market disruption and capitalized on it to become successful. So that's important to understand that. So as we look over from 2000 to 2008 to the present, history of the internet from 2009 to now, there's a lot that's gone on. But the bottom line is, what drives the effects that are important to us as car dealers are what the consumers accept. You know, in 2001, 2002, I worked on some CRM projects at Reynolds & Reynolds. Becky remembers that. We had this thing called contact management. I still suffer brain damage from that deal. But at any rate, we thought we were going to change the world with CRM. Guess who we never checked with?
The dealers.
No, we checked the dealers.
Salesmen?
The customers. We went out there and we built CRM based around what we thought dealers would want to do. But guess who we never checked in with? We never paid attention to whether customers gave a rat's ass about what we wanted to do. If you really think about it, any initiative that starts at the, let's say at the manufacturing level to the retailer level, and the very last thing that's addressed is the consumer, is almost doomed to failure. But let's put that in reverse. What about looking at what the consumers adopt, what the consumer embraces, and then working backwards from there? How do we take what those consumers have adopted or embraced and connect it back to the dealer level to make a stronger relationship between the customer and the dealer? Now, I don't know if you guys picked up on this in Sean's opening address this morning, but there is this concept that if our products become a commodity, it becomes a price issue. Does everybody understand that concept? So if I'm selling, you take a look at the local gravel quarry. If they're selling pea-sized gravel, that's a commodity, right? So if there's 5 quarries in the area and they all have the same pea-sized gravel, the only thing you care about is the cost per ton. Well, cars, obviously, and especially new cars, are essentially the same. If I've got 5 Ford dealers in a metro market, they're all selling pretty much the same Ford. So the question becomes, how do you differentiate? Well, the point that Sean made, which I thought was a very important point, is that one of the ways you differentiate yourself is the way you interact and communicate with the customers. Because if the product is the same, and I prefer to do business with one particular dealer over another for whatever reason, then that dealer has an advantage and they're typically going to command a stronger profit margin. Does anybody disagree with that? How many times has anybody here ever realized that the discussion around price on cars is something that we've initiated as the dealer? Because I can't tell you how many times, when I was working at Courtesy Chevrolet, for example, and I've worked at many dealerships, but I can't tell you how many times I call a customer up and I found myself talking about price because I couldn't think of what else to talk about. Oh, we're going to give you the best price. We're going to make it worth your while to come down here. It's really us. I think we, as automotive retailers, kind of lead the discussion on price. Let's think about our advertising. What do you lead with in your ads? Price or payment, right? Why? Because we don't know any better. Because for the same reason as when I'm on the phone with a customer and I talk about price, because I've run out of ideas of what to talk to them about. Now, that's where this type of development of evolution of technology comes in handy, because now, if you're willing to put the effort in, if you're willing to pay attention, once the consumer accepts your connection request, you can, whether they have a blog, they're on Facebook, you follow them on Twitter, whatever the case may be. You know what I do now? I find myself oftentimes when I'm in a dealership working with them, and we realize that a customer's got a Twitter account, I show them, let's go to their Twitter profile. Let's click on the tweets, because it'll say they've sent out 1,500 updates. And I'll click on that, and let's just look at what this customer's into. Oh, look at this. I'm at a Ford store. They were shopping for a Chevy Silverado 2 weeks ago. Apparently they didn't buy. They called you yesterday. But if we know that they've been shopping for a Silverado, wouldn't it make sense that we would address that? We would position our product in relative to the Silverado product. So again, it's an opportunity to have a conversation and connect with the customer on more than just price. So along the way, some of the things that have been exceptionally disruptive are, in the early days, when we saw these traditional markets feeling threatened, when we saw the emergence of discussion forums. Now I have to tell you, if you're in automotive retail and you've never paid attention to these discussion forums, it's like opening up Pandora's box. I remember meeting with the guys at Autoblog at a JD Power conference, and we took a look at some of the discussion forums by brand, and it was amazing to me, the conversations going on about products. And what was amazing to me is it was all consumers, and I didn't see, I must have looked at 150 conversations. Not once did I see a dealer involved or engaged. It was all consumers. These are people talking about your products. These are people asking questions because they're considering to buy. And there's an absence of dealers. And you know what that is? You know what I call that? An opportunity. The fact that there's an absence of dealers is really good news for the few that are willing to engage these consumers. So down here, digital camera sales overtake film. Anybody here ever take pictures, photos with film? I have. How about Polaroids? Remember Polaroids? Shake them, shake them, shake them. Now what do we got? Now I keep having to remind people, quit hesitating with digital. Just keep snapping pictures and you just delete the ones you don't like.
Don't waste
I mean, why are you sitting here and you're going, oh no, smile, can you stand taller, stand shorter? Just snap a whole bunch of them and keep the ones you like. I mean, but think about what digital photography has done for the car business. It's been a major enhancement to the way we go to market and present our vehicles. If you think about the sale of used cars, do you all realize that almost all the used cars being sold by dealers in the United States right now, they're being sold based on how they appear online? That's just the reality of it. The way your used vehicle inventory appears online is going to determine how much traffic you get on that inventory. Integration. Integration to me is amazing. When I turn on my iPhone, and I have an app that will then, it'll take all 5,000 of my Facebook friends, pull in, if they allow me access to their phone number and their email address and their photo, obviously, it pulls it into my contact records on my iPhone. I find, to me, that's integration. That's amazing to me. By the same token, there are CRM systems out there. Now, granted, you as the user have to be connected to these consumers, but think about the access that that gives you to communicate and contact these consumers. There's the search dominance. Does anybody here feel like sometimes their dealer becomes so infatuated with Google that it disrupts other parts of your digital marketing strategy? The first time I saw this was when it dawned on me that a dealer was more concerned about the SEO ranking of his website than the fact of whether or not a consumer would actually call the dealership or submit a lead form or search the inventory. And I've always found that amazing. Just being listed in search results really doesn't do anything for you if it doesn't work after they click on that listing and you don't get the customer in the dealership. So, I mean, I love the fact that many dealers understand the importance of Google, but I kind of chafe at the net result of becoming so obsessed with your Google SEO rankings, with your search engine result page rankings, at the expense of the quality of the user experience, of the consumer experience when they get to that website. So it does require balance. To me, it's almost like the up system. Has anybody here ever worked with a salesperson who took a lot of ups and they sold some cars, but had one of the lowest closing rates in the dealership? So to me, if you have strong SEO practices, but you don't have a site that thrills and delights the consumers when they get there, it's kind of like taking too many ups. You're really burning through traffic. If the traffic doesn't convert to an opportunity to do business, what's the point? So we got the AdWords. Has anybody here ever used AdWords as a user? Not through a supplier, but yourself. Raise your hands. I want to applaud you. Because in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of digital marketing for any car dealer is you have to have your own Google AdWords account for the dealership, and you have to have at least enough skill to go in there and create an ad campaign on the fly. Now, I've set up ad operations teams for 3 companies that supply dealers, so obviously I believe in the value of having a supplier who's competent that you hire to manage the bulk of your search engine advertising. But I also believe it's critically important as a dealer that you have that account that belongs to the dealership that becomes a very tactical, fast implementation account. So and the reason why I believe that is I'll give you an example. When I'm in dealerships, and you've all seen this, where you find out on the 3rd day of the month what the incentives are for the whole month. You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, in my experience, the first dealer to the market with that information about the incentives oftentimes picks off the first few customers that are going to respond to that type of incentive. Because there's only so many people that are going to be moved by $1,500 on the hood of a Mustang. There's only so many people that are going to be moved by 1.9 APR, on a Chevy Silverado. So as a dealer, there's a finite number. The first person to get in front of those customers oftentimes is going to get a bigger share than the dealer who's late to the game. So by having your own Google AdWords, you get to go in there, and you have to have a different account than your supplier uses, so there's not a conflict. I always recommend using different URLs because Google won't let 2 ads for the same URL appear at the same time. But when you do that and you're able to get to market, I can tell you times where I heard an announcement from GM's their satellite system that they use to announce stuff to all the dealers, or at least they used to. And I would immediately go to my desk and start an AdWords campaign, and we would pick up business that represented the first people in the market that were going to be affected by that particular offer. There's 100 reasons why, but every dealer should have basic capabilities when it comes to Google AdWords. Tagging. Anybody here understand what tagging is? Okay, how many of you have ever seen an online ad for AutoCon? Anybody here? It's all shut off. The good news is it's all shut off. So you've got about 9 months before it starts up again. That's all done with tagging. Basically, what Brian Pash and I did is we generated 2 unique codes. We installed those tags to tag visitors to about 28 websites visited by people in the car business. And I'll be the first to admit, some of the sites we installed them on do not know that we use them as a tagging place of origin. It's just the way we roll, okay? Call it guerrilla marketing, whatever you want. I'm of the school of thought, if you ask permission, they can say no. But if you don't ask permission, when you get caught, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you cared. Okay, I'll take it off. But basically, that was tagging. And what tagging means is, in the tags to work, you gotta have them expire in 30 days. That's the other thing, it's a perishable tag. But using those tags, we then go to advertisers. We then go to YouTube. And we say, look, if anybody goes to watch a video on YouTube and they have this tag in their browser cache, we want this 15-second pre-roll video on AutoCon to appear. And we'll pay you $1 more per 1,000 visitors to show our pre-rolls than any of your other advertisers. Because all we care about are people that have been to my dealership website, people that we know work in the car business, people that have scheduled an online service appointment. You know, pick your category. But in my opinion, tagging, how many people have heard this statement? The most valuable tool that the internet provides for businesses is measurability, measurement. I disagree with that. In my opinion, measurement is the worst curse that the internet ever introduced to us, because we swim in a sea of data. And I'm going to share some insight with you that I learned from somebody else. And if you take this with you, I promise you it'll serve you well. If you're measuring anything that will not result in an action being taken, when that measurement goes up or down, you need to stop measuring it. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your mental bandwidth. If you're going to look at average time on your website, and when it goes up and down, you're going to talk about it and you're not going to take any action, why are you measuring it? Anything that's measured that does not drive action is a waste of resources. It's a huge distraction, if nothing else. Now, in my opinion, the most valuable thing that the internet has provided us as dealers is not measurement, it's targeting. Think of the ability to target consumers with the right message. We've all heard it, the right message at the right time to the right customer. Well, the internet provides us the ability through tagging to identify which customers are which. Conceivably, if you're willing to take the time, you can put a unique tag on your truck inventory that's different than a tag on your car inventory, so that when they're running around the rest of the internet, the ads that they see are either for trucks or cars. So it's relevant to that particular consumer. Myself, what I like doing is what's called storyboarding. I like to say that they see this ad the first 5 times, and after we hit a frequency limit of 5, this next ad goes into rotation. When they've seen that ad for 5 times, then we go to the third ad. It's called storyboarding. So you tell them through the series of ads popping up in front of the consumer in the use of tagging, you're able to then control the sequence of which ads they see in what order. Tagging is, in my opinion, one of the most significant things that has ever happened relevant to the internet and dwarfs the measurement aspect. Widgets. Anybody here ever use the Dealer Rater widget? You know, Dealer Rater will let you pop the reviews like on your website or on a Facebook or on a blog or whatever. That's an example of a widget. In my opinion, the widget's extremely valuable to dealers. And what's nice is there's certain standards for widgets. Has anybody here ever seen the widgets that Google supplies? Google has a marketplace for widgets. I use them all the time. They plug in almost anywhere and they work. Customer experience, this goes back to what I was talking about with the SEO thing. The customer experience matters. It matters more now than it did 10 years ago. It's going to matter more in the future. Customers have become fussier. If they don't find what they want when they come to your dealership website, their level of patience wears thin quickly and they leave. You really need to pay attention to the customer experience. One of the things that I've noticed myself is that there was a time when we used to talk about sticky websites. Anybody here ever heard that phrase, a sticky website? And how do we define stickiness? The measurement was the average length of visit, right? I'm of the school of thought now that the longer the length of visit time is not necessarily an indicator of a better customer experience. Now, you know, there's people that will argue against me, but hear me out on this.
Poor site design.
What's that?
Poor site design.
Poor site design can increase the length of time on the site and irritate the customer because they couldn't find what they wanted fast enough. Now and again, that's a theory because I have seen where you add video, but you say you think it's correct? Because I find myself, if I can go to a website and get exactly what I want right now, take Southwest Airlines for example. The way I judge Southwest.com's website, can I get in and book a flight and get out faster instead of longer? So don't look at your average time on site and necessarily come to a conclusion that more is better, because it doesn't always work that way.
Depends on whether you're transactional versus informational on your website.
Right. It's a good point. But let me ask you this question, Drew. If you can execute a transaction faster, making you more likely to go back, just like what I talked about with Southwest, wouldn't that be an indicator that the length of visit is not necessarily a plus when it goes up?